So this past week, we've been getting a lot of roll-up over the new Resident Evil 9 game, as well as leaks of information on an apparent Resident Evil remake, or should I say a remake of a remake from the original 1991 classic horror that has released on the PlayStation 1. You heard it here, folks. Let's open the door to our evil residents, roll up your Arclay medicinal herbs, light that bitch up, and let's get busy. So it's not a surprise that we'll be getting a new installment of Resident Evil that of course leads up with another number title, that being Resident Evil 9. Details of it have been very scarce of course, but we had some leaks a few months ago if some of you guys didn't know. Some of it saying that Leon will return as one of the many playable characters alongside Chris Redfield being one of them, having mechanics that will determine if one of the NPCs in the world will survive, enemies being Wendigos, etc., alongside an open world concept. Now this was back in August, so let's get right into that. So right here on a Game Rant post that talks about the leaks that happened in August, the first big Resident Evil 9 leak. Back in 2022, Resident Evil 9 potentially suffered its first leak. First found on 4chan or later collated and discussed by YouTuber Residents of Evil, great channel, check them out. These initial Resident Evil 9 leaks claimed that the working title for the sequel was Resident Evil Apocalypse. Has a ring to it, honestly. According to the leaks, Apocalypse would be set somewhere in west of North America, where players would be able to explore a series of caves, forests, and rivers. The game would apparently revolve around the 9th moon cycle, which would cause the appearance of some spooky monsters like Wendigos, mimics, human voices, and mysterious woman in regal gold and brown dress. Sounds pretty cool, right? Sounds very familiar to Resident Evil 8. Another one being Chris Redfield could be Resident Evil 9's protagonist. Flashing forward almost an entire year, the next Resident Evil 9 leak will come in June 2023, where Twitter user Chris Marks would state that Chris Redfield would be the main playable protagonist of Resident Evil 9. Not only that, Marks believed that a slew of legacy Resident Evil characters will be joining Chris in his new adventure, including Jill Valentine, Chris Redfield, and Leon S. Kennedy. To round things out, Marks claimed that Resident Evil 9 will focus more on action than horror, that the game will be released in the later half of 2024. However, Marks also mentioned that he believed Capcom would announce the game by the end of 2023. Yeah, obviously hasn't. Touche, Game Rant. Now, take this aspects of leaks with a grain of salt, since Chris Mark deactivated his Twitter account with backlash regarding the release of Grand Theft Auto 6 trailer release window being wrong, and we have other leaks regarding the game. It's being explained different otherwise, so more further, it's not like Capcom to release a whole game trailer so close to its initial release of the game, so consider this guy not a credible source. I think Reddit would agree as well. Resident Evil 9 could be the biggest game in the franchise yet. In October 2023, a leaker by the name of Dusk Golem will take to their Discord to share some apparent information about Resident Evil 9. And this initial leak stated that Resident Evil 9 will have the highest budget and longest development period of any Resident Evil game to date. Dusk Golem also mentioned that Capcom will apparently view Resident Evil 9 as both sort of a conclusion to the past series events and the beginning of a new chapter to the franchise. Again, don't know how true this is, but Resident Evil 8 was released back in 2021 during the pandemic, and if Capcom was working on its title during that time, it could have had a pushback due to COVID-19, but that is less than likely as Capcom was immediately working on Resident Evil 4, and Capcom do not like to work on multiple games at once unless it's their other teams working on it. A perfect example, Capcom is actually split up into divisions. So Capcom, they called each of their divisions R&D division. So for example, Capcom has R&D Division 1, which is historically responsible for franchises like Resident Evil and Devil May Cry. Capcom R&D Division 2 is known for titles such as Monster Hunter and Street Fighter. Capcom R&D Division 3, this team has worked on projects such as Ace Attorney and Dead Rising. And again, Capcom R&D Division 4 focuses on mobile games and online titles. For Capcom to be working on Resident Evil 8, they would have to simultaneously be working on Resident Evil 9 and Resident Evil 4, and we all know that would be like throwing 2 TV dinners in a microwave at the same time. Recent leaks. So I think currently the recent events of leaks is what people are most notably excited about. Instead, this time around, it's regarding Leon being the main protagonist. According to, I cannot for the love of me pronounce this guy's Twitter name, Pre Alarabaya. Sorry guys. To the Twitter leak, which translates to English from Arabic, we have received some information about the ninth part of the special source, and we will share it with you with this tweet. Leon Kennedy will be the main character in this game introduction. Again, this part of the leak changes from the previous leak where Chris is the main character. Now they're saying Leon is the main character. The source does not know why only the game's introduction was mentioned, as the character may change with the passage of events. In this introduction, the region will be the Southeast Asia, as Dusk Golem mentioned previously. So I guess these tweaks are kind of, you know, they're correlating together. And also, as in the case with the first information, the region may change with passage of events. The events of the story will take place in the summer of 2025, which means that Leon's age will be 48 years old at the time. That'll be pretty cool. This information is almost certain because it is from a reliable source that our own source reported to us. But then he mentioned that he heard another piece of news, but he's not sure about it, which is Resident Evil 1 Remake will be released in 2026. But what makes this possible? Apparently Capcom is preparing something for the series' 30th anniversary, and conclude his statement by saying details are secret. And he goes on to say, note that the 13th anniversary will be in 2026, and according to what the source heard, the remake of the first part of the release in 2026. So perhaps this thing the Capcom is preparing is the remake, especially as it's related to the anniversary. In conclusion, no matter how true and reliable this information is, we're not certain about anything we're talking about. Capcom may change their ideas overnight, so what we have to do is be patient and wait. Now, I do appreciate his honesty, stating that how they don't even know how true this is. And again, it seems like that a lot of the leaks are coming full circle to what other leaks been stating. Let's not leave the fact that he also mentioned another remake of Resident Evil 1. Now, some fans have been wanting this game to be revamped in Capcom's RE engine, the engine that kickstarted with Resident Evil 7, the engine that literally revamped and resurrected the entire series, brought back to them to full glory. Let's talk about what I think about Resident Evil 1 remake. Alright guys, so as I was making this video, we just got some new updates on what's going on, Capcom and the remakes that they're doing. So apparently it's not Resident Evil 1 that's getting a remake, it's actually Code Veronica and Resident Evil 0, and that's according to Dusk Golem once again. And it's like I said guys, it's these leaks are just coming from different mouths in all different directions. So the thing with this one though is that this was specifically stated and reported by IGN itself, and you know, take IGN as you want, you know, IGN gets a lot of bad rep, etc. But if a main outlet is talking about these leaks, then it could be more closer to the truth than not. But I'm still gonna talk about Resident Evil 1, so when I do talk about it, just think of it as past tense, and then we're gonna get right into Code Veronica and Resident Evil 0 right after. So I gotta edit this video a little bit. Now, there's not too many leaks and details explaining what Resident Evil 1 Remake will be, but I think we all know the story and lore of what Resident Evil 1 is at its core base. From what I've heard, Capcom is planning to expand the lore of Resident Evil 1. What that may be, I'm not quite sure. Looking back at Resident Evil 3, they changed minor things like Barry not being the one to pick up Jill, and Resident Evil 4 Remake, Ada DLC, has had a huge difference in changes as well, and so much more. Maybe they're going to retcon some minor inconsistencies to help elaborate on what's happening within the story and remakes. Now, I'd be lying if I said that I'm not excited, but aren't we kind of going backwards here? Like, come on, Resident Evil already had a remake, and a fantastic one at that. It's still playable till this day if you go back and play the HD remaster version. And hell, even the GameCube one still looks great in my eyes, which back then was so ahead of its time. I was hoping, if the leaks being true, they would redo Resident Evil 5 and somehow tweak the story of that game to be fit in the narrative of what they already was doing with the previous remakes. Again, if this is very true, then maybe they're just going back to keep the events of Resident Evil 5 original version in the timeline. But you know what I really want, Capcom? Give me my damn Dino Crisis. Right, guys? So many fans have been asking and wanting this game to either have a sequel or a remake to the original first two, and I feel revitalizing this cherished series would really help reel in new fans alongside some old diehard fans. Shit, there's even a petition to bring it back. Please, Capcom, for the love of God, do a Dino Crisis remake. With all that being said, if they do actually stick to their guns with these leaks being true, I feel expanding the Spencer Mansion size in this remake will do the game justice. If adding new said lore is their objective, then they should this time around have Chris and Jill actually have stories that coincide with one another. Switching players back and forth with Chris and Jill, or just keeping it classic and, you know, allowing you to choose, but still making the campaign have sudden differences. This remake shouldn't just be another remake. It has to feel different at least a little, while still obtaining what makes Resident Evil set the foundation of the series as a whole, and also experiencing the Spencer Mansion with over-the-shoulder camera angles and the graphics of Resident Evil 4, the mansion being bigger and, you know, well, being loaded with new and old BOWs will be mwah, chef's kiss. Last week we got leaks on by Dusk Golem, who says remakes of Resident Evil 0 and Code Veronica are in development right now. IGN can corroborate that 0 and Code Veronica are the next two Resident Evil remakes scheduled to release. Capcom is yet to comment on these reports. They further state that it should be no surprise to learn that more Resident Evil remakes are on the way, after Capcom indicated as much in December last year, although at the time it stopped short of announcing which games would be next. And this is just crazy because, you know, fans, they really wanted Code Veronica X remake for a long ass time, and I'm surprised that they're even working on Resident Evil 0 remake rather than a 1 remake. But one might possibly be a remake, and again, any of this could be up in the air. It's not fully confirmed by Capcom themselves. Remember, these are just guys who are leaking this information. Sometimes the leaks can be true. Maybe they are getting these kind of sources, but apparently there is multiple remakes being made, and there is a possibility that one can still be up in the air. Okay, now we're closing in. Now for Resident Evil 9. Okay, so I have quite a few things to say about these leaks. First things first, I would absolutely love if Capcom brought back Leon, Chris, Jill, and shit, while they're at it, bring back Claire. If the leaks are true, bringing back the original first 4 of the first 2 beginning titles will bring the game back full circle. If this is the end of a saga being a beginning of a new one, then Capcom must go in balls deep with this title and not pull no strings. Just please don't give us the Joel treatment and kill Chris or Leon in the first 2 hours of the game. That will be doing the fans a huge disservice. Now, I am all down for Wendigos and other cool mythical BOWs like they done with Resident Evil 8, as that will continue the trend. I don't know how I feel about Capcom making this game open world like Dragon's Dogma 2, or open world in general. If Capcom wants to repeat Resident Evil 6 again, this isn't the game to do it, as we haven't had a proper Resident Evil game with our beloved STARS team since Resident Evil 1, 2, 3, 4, Code Veronica, and if you want to count 7 and 8, and for some fans, 5. And 5 wasn't really that bad, but it wasn't that amazing. That's not counting the remakes, as they're only re-adaptations of previous predecessors. Hopefully I am not wrong when I say this, but I don't think Capcom is willing to make the same mistake with the success that has landed in their laps with titles as Resident Evil 8, Resident Evil 4 Remake, Dragon's Dogma. While questionable in some regards, Street Fighter 6 with some of the best fighting game from 2023, then giving their employees a raise for their amazing job, and hopefully they will continue to catch the bag and not fumble it this time around. Maybe loosen up on the microtransactions, as fans are worried and annoyed, and you know, it's just a fucking dick move. Just go off what foundation was rebuilt from scratch. That being Resident Evil 7 and until now. Take those elements, splice them, throw away what didn't work then, bam! You have your next amazing title. Open world, Resident Evil 8, and you want an open world, right? Well, Resident Evil 8 had a perfect open linear design that could have been better expanded on, but with the release of Resident Evil 4 Remake introducing many side quests, I can see the vision that Capcom might have been going with, and introducing NPCs and player choices, if done correctly, can turn out to be a thrilling experience. So sleepyheads, that's my take. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Give a green herb to my like button or aim this red beam at my dislike button. Drop a comment below and hit that bell to call the villagers to bingo night. And you heard it. Go to sleep, count your sheep, and catch your Z's. Peace out.